So I'm just really excited to have you here. As you can see, everyone really is.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And so tell us, how did you get here? Like, what was your trajectory? How did you get from being a theater casting director to now being in a whole different realm and also a producer? Could you talk to us a little bit about how that happened? Like, where were the steps along the way?
Thank you. I will. I'll try and answer the question. If I don't, just get me back there, okay? And you all help me. So when I started, I lived I'm from Long Island, New York, right? And so I'm old enough where I always wanted to cast film. Always. That was always my thing. And my journey, though, was through theater. And a lot of it was because I was born and grew up on Long Island, and I was seeing theater. And at that time, you couldn't cross over in the way that you can now, right? Because now you can do everything from everywhere. But when I was starting, you really had to pick. You had to choose New York or Los Angeles. And because of finances and because of not having any, I had to work in New York. And so my path then was through theater. And so, I started as an intern at New York Theater Workshop. I think I got paid $50 a month. So I had 5 jobs and I did that. And I was a box office. It's like all of us, right? It's just like we all work. And then I had the amazing opportunity to work with Daniel Swee at Lincoln Center Theater because I had been a personal assistant to Rebecca Miller at that time, who was just getting into making films as a filmmaker, and at that time was acting to pay so that she could learn how to make film and become a filmmaker. And so I was her personal assistant, but because I had, I went to so many plays, and she couldn't pay me as a casting director. She's just like, you'll do the casting. We'll just cast Ruth Malachek. I'm really aging myself now. Henry Stram, all these amazing theater actors. And so I did that. Daniel, and I was also a personal assistant to Wendy Wasserstein at the same time. I love that everybody knows Wendy Wasserstein. It's so crucial that we all know who she is. And because of those two connectors, Daniel interviewed me, and I was lucky enough to get the job. And so that's where I started casting theater.
And can I just go back for one quick second?
You can.
So you grew up on Long Island. Were you one of those kids that had to get to see the theater, that you would come in during the week and see theater?
No, it didn't work really like that for me, in that, my mother would take us once or twice a year, but then when I was 16, I realized I discovered it myself, right? And so then I remember seeing, oh my God, this was amazing, Godspell at the Lambs Theater, that now is the Lambs Club. And it was a theater, and it was amazing. And all I remember is taking myself to TKTS, buying a ticket, knowing nothing about it. And I'm like, okay, well, it's up there. I'm just going to go. And just remembering the song, and it just stays with me. It's like, oh, God, I'm dying. Clearly, I cast musicals. I can't sing them. But it just always stayed with me, right? And then the first musical I ever did see, though, was A Chorus Line. And it was the original one. And it was, my mother took me for my 16th birthday. So now you can do the math and you can figure out how old I am.
That is so exciting because you were here. You were here. You were soaking it all in. Sure. And you're still here now. And you're making it happen.
Well, I think the thing is just at a certain point, there comes a time where there was the question of, if I went to LA, would I work more? And would I work more in film? And I never knew the answer, really. I mean, well, I do know the answer, and the answer is probably yes, right? It would be all film, right, and television, and there would be no theater for me, casting. And honestly, I think you can always tell. I always love this. It's just if you start watching films and TV shows and you look at the casting director, this is a good exercise. Look at who did the casting, always. And then it's like you start to see that you have your own vision, right? That a casting director has their own art form, they have their own vision, and eventually you will see the people that you're drawn to, right? Like, oh, that's what I want to be in. That person I really jam with, right? Like we have the same aesthetic. That's the office that I should really be trying to be seen by, because I think I get them and they're going to get me. And I think if you look at my stuff, it's like it's heavily populated with amazing theater talent. Heavily populated with theater actors. And that's not to say that I also don't mix it in. There's a lot of intersectionality within it, but it's just like for the Penguin, Kristen Milioti, Dee Dee O'Connell, right? Etoile, you've got incredible people, and you know, right now, Gideon Glick is coming to mind, right? And there was another one. Oh, Your Friends and Neighbors. Lena Hall, right? It's just, and all of the friends and all of the neighbors. And I think that like there is a common thread there. So if you look at Avie Kaufman, if you look at Francine Maisel, if you look at Deborah Zane, if Gail Keller, you know, all of these people have their own style, right? And it's a really good exercise. And I started doing that. And I was just, you know, I'm like, oh, this is my thing. This is my thing. This is my person. Did I answer your question?
I love that. Yeah, and that's actually really helpful. That's helpful for homework too, you know, for us to be able to see how what resonates with us.
Yeah.
And but also what I was wondering too is like when you start working with a director, and it seems to me that you have these, you know, repeat clients like Amy Sherman Palladino, Steven Spielberg, where you are working together with somebody. Is it because you think that you get each other's vibe as well?
It's a total. You get each other, and then you develop the shorthand, right? And it's all like, you know, I only want to work with nice people. And so if it's a repeat, then you know that they were nice.
Well, we all like working with nice people, don't we? Yeah. So what is the process like when you start on a project? How does that work as far as what happens? Do you they have a list, you have a list, or how does that go for you when you first start working with
I think you get the script, right? Okay. So it's like I get the script, I read it, and I'm like, oh, well, I know what my vision is, but what is the director's vision? Right? And then you have to have a conversation with the director. It's like, well, what do you think happens? Well, how do you see this? What is that? It's just like I can then have ideas, but then I have to maybe renegotiate what those are after the conversation with the artist, right? Because it's not my vision. I'm just supporting the director's vision. And then, based on that conversation, you start to think of ideas, or start auditioning, and then you bring in people that you think will be right, and then also you open it up to people that you don't know because you hope to get to meet people who are right that you didn't know, right?
And how does it work within your office as far as dividing up the work? And is there
that's a good question.
People? Yeah.
Well, you know, everyone knows that everything changed because of the pandemic, right? And so pre-pandemic, I still have an office, and it's in the Flatiron District, and we all would work pre-pandemic in the office, and now we do everything remotely, unless we have an in-person meeting that requires a lot of printing, or because we have to do some work sessions, but most things now are remote. But it's depending on what I have going on. I have Ann Davison works with me, and we collaborated on Etoile. Ann and I have been working together for 17 years, and Ann was came as an associate and now has, you know, established herself as a casting director in her own right. Nicholas Petrovich is also a casting director and my film associate. He's working actually on the things that we cast theatrically for theater. He is casting director, and he's doing a musical that I'm producing right now called Saturday Church, and he's casting that. And he also works with me on all the films as my film associate. And I have an assistant, Mary Estrella, who is incredible, and she's been with me for a year and a half, and she mostly works on TV and film, but also has been helping out with Saturday Church. And Suzanne Ryan, who is amazing, and she is the original casting director of Law and Order for 20 years. And she came on just recently and helped us out on The Penguin and now Your Friends and Neighbors.
Fantastic. You mentioned about being a producer. Can
Thank
you
you.
talk to us a little bit about how that happened, why you were interested in it, and how having one more hat, as you're working, how that all works together? Because for Etoile, you also are a producer on that.
That's special in that I think, I've worked with Amy Sherman Palladino on and off, I want to say for 10 years, because there was, the way that I know Amy and Dan is because there was a series called The Return of Jezebel James with Diane Wiest, Parker Posey, and Lauren Ambrose. And it had one season, right? And she had seen Flight of the Conchords, which I had cast.
It's so good. I wish it would come back.
And Amy is loyal, like so loyal. When Amy finds her people, she finds her people. And so that was a long time ago, but she stayed in touch. And then she had The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and she circled back. And then
Congratulations, by
thank
the
you.
way, her Emmy Award with Marvelous Mrs.
It's very
Maisel.
nice, but I only bring it up for a point, right? Which I only bring it up for a point. Thank you, Lori. Which is, and then we get to Etoile. And because when you're in the fabric of their world, you're building the world together. And because it's shared, and it's shared art, and it's shared history, you're starting those conversations during The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, the final season, and you're starting to hear what they're talking about. And so I definitely think on this one, the input was from the beginning while the story was being written, and that you could then start to think about people. For example, we would have conversations while we were casting Maisel, just like, well, who do you think should be Gael? Well, we just saw West Side Story. It was amazing. We love David Alvarez. We haven't written, Etoile yet, but we want to write something for him. Let's meet him and write a part for him. So things like that.
That's
right?
fantastic.
And I think you can have those conversations, and because the trust is there, and they value your input and your taste, but you're creating the world with them before they're writing it. So, but it's also a testament to them, which is that they see it and then they give it, right? So that's a special situation. And then with other things, I got to a place where I felt like I was doing it for so long, and that I had the experience, and that a lot of the people that I was starting to work with were younger and less experienced. And then I was like, well, what am I bringing to the table? I'm bringing knowledge, I'm bringing experience. So what is a producer and what defines a producer? Oh, hey, I think that's what this is. So now I'm going to do it, and I'm going to ask for it, right? On film and TV. And then theater, it's different, because that's really like rolling up your sleeves and like actually doing the sweat equity work, as I like to say. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's wonderful. And it's just like you're just expanding out what you're already doing. It feels that it's a natural extension of what you're already doing.
Right, and why should other people get it for free? I'm not saying like financially, just in general. It's just that, it's something that you're doing and that you should then, receive what is.
Right, be acknowledged for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I will say this one thing that is interesting, though. I did produce a documentary called Arthur Miller Writer.
And it was so good. If you can check it out. No, really, I watched it, and I love documentaries. And I watched it, and I was like, Cindy Tolan. At the end, I was like so surprised that you had done this, because it was. It just felt like it was a very different world that you created with that.
And I love documentaries, and also Rebecca Miller directed it, right, on her dad, Arthur Miller, and because of my connection, right, of casting, it leads into it, and also I was friends with Arthur, right, and so I would go to Connecticut, I would go to Roxbury, and so I had that relationship, and so that was just one of those things, but then it worked out.
Well, and also you're talking about relationships and trust, so that
Right.
with the family, you were a part of that too, by the time that you had put in with them, that you could then help bring that story to life.
I think that's right. I think that you have the stories, right? You can just say like, well, don't you remember when Arthur did this, or what about when he did that, or what about when Inga Marath, who is Rebecca Miller's mother, is incredible. It's just like, remember this, and so again, it's weaving in art, right? Art into the story, I think.
So with Etoile, I hope I'm saying that right.
I think you are.
When you were doing the casting for that, and the scenes tonight are from that show, right?
Yep.
Yeah, which is exciting. So and the show is so lovely and interesting and different, and very different than Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. But how did that work with having the cast and the casting being done in France and here in the United States? How did that work for you?
Well, there are casting directors everywhere, right? and so like we have local casting directors in America, like in Atlanta and everywhere. And Juliette Manager is my French casting director colleague, and she and I and Anne worked very closely together. We work closely with also Marguerite Derricks, who's the choreographer. And so the way that it worked was Juliet has her, taste, and she would audition everyone, send the tapes to Anne and myself on certain roles, not on all roles, and then we would look at every single thing, and then we would put forth, the tapes to Amy and Dan, and then we would have a conversation around it, and anybody that they responded to, we, flew over in person. It wasn't that many. I mean, it's just like, they're really amazing. Like, they know instantly who they like and who can do their work, right? Because for them, and this is a tip for anybody doing the scenes today, it's just like, we call it the Palladino pace. And it's a thing. And if you can't do it, it takes a lot of practice to be able to do it.
It's like all the way back with the Gilmore Girls. I
Yeah.
mean, when you see that and you feel it, and
Totally.
there's just something about it that feels familiar.
Yeah.
In the way that they, and I also saw that Kelly Bishop is
Absolutely.
in the show. It's so
absolutely.
wonderful.
She totally
Yeah.
is, and she's amazing. She plays Luke Kirby's mom, but it's like a repertoire company, right? It's no different than theater and a repertoire company, where it's just like, oh, we love these people, and why shouldn't we be able to use them?
And then circling all the way back, wasn't Kelly in Chorus Line?
Yes.
And you saw the original Chorus Line
Yep.
here in New York. So
Good Lord.
isn't that so interesting? And this wonderful theater person that she is,
Oh, amazing. And I have to, say that Kelly needed to fly to Paris at her age for a scene, and she did it, and she's so happy about it.
Oh, that's really great. So, let's talk a little bit about self-tape, since that's the
Sure.
world that we live in.
Yeah.
First of all, people talk about authenticity. We hear about authenticity a lot. How might you recommend for actors to think about putting authenticity into their tape, and especially because sometimes, I don't know about everybody else here, but do you hear about it's those first 10 seconds or 15 seconds of your tape that need to catch the eye, so to speak, of the casting director, but being real, being authentic, being you. Can you just talk to us about that? About what, because you are seeing all the tapes as they come in.
Yeah, thank you. I want to say this about the self-tapes. We watch them all. In my office, I can't speak for anybody else. Every single tape that comes in for a role, we watch it. I just want you to know that, okay? It doesn't go into some void. I know it feels like that because you're not getting any feedback. And it's not going to change, and I'm sorry. You know, and I have a lot of thoughts about it, and I'm happy to talk more about that if Lori wants to do that at some point. But, and it's okay that it's not going to change. It just feels not great. But I can give you a lot of insight into the behind the scenes of that, okay, at any point if you want to raise
How
those
about right
questions.
now?
Really?
Please,
Okay.
right? Yes, please. Thank you.
So I think the thing is, and this is context, right? And I think it's always important to have context because it is a business. It's an art, but it's also business so that there's a marriage, right? And we're in such a crazy time right now. And like we're living in real life history in the entertainment and globally, obviously, right? And so no one knows what it wants to be, right? And it's figuring it out. And so everything is just like it ebbs, it flows. It ebbs, it flows. It's just like how many years ago did the streamers come on the scene? Then when they came on the scene, it was the golden age of TV, right? Before that, it was movies. The streamers came, and this is just my theory. So, you know, no one has told me this. This is what I think. And then the streamers came in, and then it was the golden age of TV because they were spending a lot of money because they needed content and they needed art, right? And then they got it. And then, just like everything else, it was a good run, and now we're at that place where everything is a bottom line. It's too much money. We have everything that we needed. We paid for it, and now, you know, it's content. Right? And it's just like, so in a way, it's like, let's make so many things. And if it's good, that's great. But if it's clickable, that's also good. And so there's so much that it got really big and it got really international, right? Because before streamers, it was network television. Right? Is this making any sense?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And I love this because, you know, we're all living it, but from a different lens. So hearing you talk about it, where you're coming from, yes, it's beautiful. Thank you. This is wonderful. You're like putting the what's been happening, and as you say, we're currently living in history, but you're contextualizing it for us because I think when things are slow, it's really hard to see, oh, there was this
Sure.
bubble and it changed, and you know, we were all home watching
Right.
TV during the lockdown, and now what happened? And then there's strikes, and it was all supposed to come back, and it's 2025. What happened?
Right. And I think also, right, and we're in that flux with movies too, right? Like how many movies are actually being made, right? And so then it's just like it's all about television. And then it's about like how much television now is being made and what is art and what is content, and also that it's international, right? And so it's working out what it needs to be. And when it's slow for you, I also want you to know that it's slow for every other department, right? So, and, you know, I have been, you know, out, and everyone, you know, that I'm surprised by is just like, you know, I haven't worked since December, casting professionals. I haven't worked since December, you know, or haven't done this, or, you know, I'm going to lose my insurance. That it's for you, but it's also reflected in other crafts. And so that's always when I know, like, oh, it's bad, you know, and that it's just that the art form is trying to figure out what it needs to be for art, but also for the business model.
And what do you suggest for actors?
Thank you.
When it's slow.
There's so many things, right? It's just like I'm always learning as a human. Like, for Etoile, I was like, oh my God, during the strikes, I'm going to learn French. Did I learn it? No. But I definitely tried. And also then I was ready to be able to say, merci beaucoup, when we were at dance auditions. And I think that actors can do that too. It's just like, what do I feel like might be a weakness that I have, and can I actually focus on that? Can I enunciate? Do I need a dialect? What accent maybe do I need? Can I sing? Can I not sing? I was just, today I was at ensemble auditions for this musical that I am producing called Saturday Church. And it's about ballroom. There some of the dance is ballroom dance, right? House music and house dance. And, there was this young person that came in and was just so brave and was just like, I came because it's the dance that I love to do, but I've never ever sung before in my entire life, and just boldly sang and could sing, right? And so it's just like, if you open up the door and then there's the opportunity, it's amazing what can walk in the door, right? And so I think that is just like, what is the thing that we all want to learn, grow, and work on, and then do that.
Well, and what you're talking about too is taking control and agency over what's in your ability. And also, you're the only person who can really truthfully say to yourself, hey, this might be fun, because almost anything that you do is going to take time and energy. So you want to make sure it's something that resonates inside.
I want to also answer the question about the self-tapes and the first 3-second thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
We'll watch the whole audition. We will, and we do. What I want to say also is, like, there's no trick and there's no gimmick about the first 3 seconds. I think it's literally doing the work of the scene and the character. And whether or not I feel like how long that takes or whatever, it's just like, that is the opportunity. I would say, that's where you get to select the takes that you send to us, right? And you get to do it as many times as you want. I know it's so much work. It was like suddenly then actors had to pay to audition again, right? It's just like, I need this light, I need this camera. You don't need any of that stuff. I just want you to know, like, you don't need that light around the ring. You don't need that. You just need your iPhone, and you don't need a backdrop. You don't need any of that stuff. If you've invested in it, that is awesome, but it shouldn't cost you anything to audition, number one. Number two, it's an opportunity for you, because you get to choose which takes you think are the best for us to see. And I would only send 2. I wouldn't send more than 2. I would say, send 2 and say, because you don't get the script. There's sides pulled. You have no context for it. How do you know what choice to make, right? So again, pick 2 choices and lay 2 down and then send them and then forget about it, right?
And I think that you also wove in the idea of authenticity around that.
That's the answer to the authenticity question, because I actually don't know what authenticity means to you, right? And so for me, authenticity for casting is just like, is this right for the part, and is this person appropriate for the part? They're good because I'm watching the tape, and does it work for what we're looking at in terms of what's needed for the part?
That's fantastic. Well, this portion of the evening is now coming
officially
to a close.
over.
Yes. Yes.
Wait, can I say one more thing?
Please do.
And if it's not for this, it's money in the bank, because then we remember you for another part it happens. And my favorite story is David Alvarez. And I don't know if anybody knows this story because I talk about it all the time, which is David Alvarez was 10 years old. He plays Bernardo in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. He was 10 years old. He was one of the 3 Billy Elliots on Broadway, right? And they won a Tony Award. So we had seen the other 2 during the course of auditioning for the Jets and the Sharks, right? And I was just like, but there were 3. I called out to my office, have we seen all 3? And then everyone was like, well, the other one is David Alvarez. We can't find him. And David Alvarez dropped out of acting. You know, David Alvarez is like Gael in Etoile, where it's just like sometimes he wants to act, sometimes he sometimes he wants to travel, get on his motorbike, and see the world. And so we DM'd him on Instagram. It took 2 weeks for him to respond because I think he was in Mexico. And he responded like 2 weeks later, and he then did send in a self-tape, and then he got the part. And so I know this sounds like it's made up, but we always remember for the next one. Yeah.
Cindy, you're amazing.
Lori, you're amazing.
Thank you so much.